And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 3, episode 23. The season is flying by. Hard for me to believe that I've already completed 22 of these things. It's been a blast. Thanks to all of you for the support. Been meaning to talk to this next guest for a long time this season because his team is rolling, has been rolling right out of the gates. And that's Pete Moran, the head men's basketball coach at John Carroll University. And, Pete, coming into the season, with word of how much talent you were bringing in, I think everyone knew that you were a team to look out for. But those of us that vote in the poll and stuff like that, we didn't know what to do with you because, like, do you just assume the team's going to be great?
Mhm.
Um, but boy, coming into the season, you had to feel pretty good about the talent you had coming in here.
Well, we did, Bob, and like you guys, there's a lot of question marks, right? You've been around long enough to see institutions that bring in transfers, and let's be honest, you look at the OAC, every school in our conference has several transfers, right?
Right.
Ours just kind of came with a little notoriety. The unique thing about our transfers, Bob, and I've said this repeatedly, not one individual is a kid that I went on the transfer portal and blindly emailed. All of them live within 20 minutes of our campus.
Sure.
Um, I think all but one or two attended our basketball camps when they were little kids. One of them was my nephew, Luke Chacon. He's actually my nephew.
Right.
Um, and then two young men from Lake Catholic High School. They played for my younger brother, and a couple other guys. They're just local guys that all knew each other. It's something that probably won't ever happen again at our institution, but that they're all great young men. That for lack of better words, they've been humbled at the higher level. So I think going into the season, a lot of question marks I had was how is this going to work? It takes a lot of sacrifice, not only from the guys coming in, but the guys that were returning. And we hammered that from day one. Our team's going to be based. Our motto is family and sacrifice. How quickly can we come together as a family, and how quickly can guys realize, hey, they're going to sacrifice minutes, they're going to sacrifice shots for the betterment of our program, and that's a tip of the cap to our coaching staff. That from day one we've implemented that, and we've been successful thus far.
The first game I watched of yours this year was the game at Wheaton. As a CCIW fan, I was really interested to see that matchup. Can't remember the date of that, but it feels like it
Mm-hmm.
was really early in the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean this as a compliment to all the great players in Division 3. My One of my comments afterwards, I think I probably even tweeted this, was that as I watched your guys and the upper level talent that you brought in, they were fantastic. And at the same time, what I said is, hey, they're not any more fantastic than Tyson Cruikshank at
Yeah.
Wheaton and TJ Askew at Wheaton, and the great players of the OAC. It's really a compliment, I think, Pete, isn't it, that you can bring in guys that had scholarships and they get in here, and
Mm-hmm.
when they play the Mariettas and the Mount Unions and the Heidelbergs, there's a bunch of talent all across Division 3. Just talk about how impressive the level of basketball is.
Well, I think our guys they don't know what they don't know, and I think Wheaton. I remember after that game, Grant Wheaton didn't shoot the ball very well that day,
Yeah.
but I think our guys they had no idea how big of a victory that was,
Right.
because they don't know Division 3. I mean, guys that have been around our program understood, what that victory meant. But it also, I think, from a coaching perspective, it took us months to realize what we had.
Yeah.
Early on, we were playing a lot of guys. We were just trying to figure out what worked, how guys would respond in certain situations. And that took time. I said from day one that we won't know what we have truly until January and February.
Right.
We have a much better understanding in situational things, which guys we can count on, which guys can perform at a high level in certain situations, and which guys have quite frankly to play. But the win. I was very strategic to get them on the schedule. We had the luxury in the preseason. You only allowed two scrimmages. We were fortunate to scrimmage Case Western and Worcester, and those were fantastic scrimmages
Yeah.
for
Those
our
are good
guys
ones.
because I think early on our guys got a taste for what high level Division 3 basketball is, and like you said, when you're talking, the Sweet 16, in the NCAA tournament, those guys, they can play against Division II and some Division I programs. And, I've seen that over the years. And I think our guys are realizing it. And obviously we have a giant target on our back. We've had that all year. So just to kind of see the guys gel together and the coaching staff to realize what works, I think that's been instrumental in our success early on.
You guys are sitting here 21-2, 15-1 in the league. You lost the game at Mount Union the first half of the season. You got that back. We'll talk about that one in just a second, but you got that one back at home in one of the best games I've watched online all year, the game where you beat Mount Union at your place. You got to be pretty thrilled sitting here 21-2. Like you said, all the new pieces you were trying to mesh together, and the schedule you played, and as good as the OAC is, like you got to feel great, Pete, about sitting here at 21-2 right now, don't you?
I do. I think, you know what, obviously we finished dead last in the OAC last year.
Right.
Um, you know what, but I think a lot of it, we had some young talent. Two of our starters, season-ending injuries. We had 20 cases of COVID from December to January, shut down 3 or 4 times. In the game of basketball, you're never going to respond. I didn't think we were the last place team in the OAC last year, but we were kind of dealt a bad hand. But to overcome that, I'm obviously excited, but from a coach's perspective, I'm going to lose sleep over thinking about BW on Wednesday.
Right.
I can't really sit back and enjoy any of this. That's kind of the, when you're in the coaching profession, you just got to go day by day. And I think, early on, we told our guys, we're not chasing perfection. We're chasing at the opportunity to compete at the highest level. We're chasing the fact that we want to play our best basketball at the right time. And as of late, we've been playing decent. We're not where we need to be yet. It may take us a year to really get where we need to be. It's a special group. There's a lot of depth, which we're excited about. And, all these guys have, 2 more years after this year. So, we're excited where the future is heading in our program.
You're coming off a overtime win, and I'd like to say that I watched it, but unfortunately, Ohio Northern makes that really difficult to do. So I didn't sign up.
My wife already got in my ear about that. So
yeah. There's not too many schools out there that are making us pay to watch these games. So I was watching the live stream, and that was plenty exciting because watching it get into overtime was exciting. But then I want to say that you scored like 18 points in overtime. I think it was 77 all. And did you finish with 95? Whatever it was. I didn't see it, so I can't really comment on it, but it was like a flurry in overtime of points going on. Talk through just surviving and finding a way to win that game at Ohio Northern.
It's a tough place to play. It's always been. Like I mentioned, my dad was head coach for 25 years, and he probably won 12 straight years without winning there. It's a tough 3-hour drive. Very unique gym, a lot of history in the gym. Senior night, they're playing for something. They're playing for their lives just to get in the OAC tournament. And they shot the ball really well. I think they're extremely well prepared. Our guys, I just felt they came out flat, and we have a tendency of doing that. Our guys have been, when their back's against the wall, that's when they tend to, turn things up a little bit. I wish they would, start the game a little bit, with a little bit more urgency. But, again, that's something we're working through. We got in overtime, and, our guys, we've been really, really doing a great job of finishing games, special situations, making free throws. During the course of the year, you've been around the game long enough. During the course of this long season, there's probably 6, 7, 8 games that come down to 1 or 2 possessions. And, we've been able to make plays, make some free throws, which has been exciting. But, any win, the OAC is fantastic. You mentioned Heidelberg, and, I saw you made a tweet the other day, and it, again, being a Division III junkie like yourself, you look at our region, there's 49 teams or something like that. Yeah. And the fact that we only have 7 regionally ranked teams compared to some regions that have less. You look at 2 Heidelberg victories that, quite frankly, they're probably regionally ranked in the vast majority of other, regions.
Every region.
We kind of lose out on, regional ranked wins just based off of, the amount of teams that we have in our conference, or I'm sorry, in our region.
It's a great point, and it's worth restating here is that Region 7 only has 7 spots, and no region has more than 7.
Mm-hmm.
But by the numbers mathematically, I believe that you guys should have 8. And if
Mm-hmm.
you look at the depth of your region and the way it's configured now, for several years, CCIW was paired with the WIAC, which was ridiculous. It was
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah, yeah.
Now your region is the one that's ridiculous. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at this, and to your point, if Heidelberg were ranked, everyone that had wins over Heidelberg would be getting those RROs. So instead of you guys sitting there with, what is it, 3, maybe 2 or 3, I can't remember,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have more. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're going to have to talk about that. I know it's not just a men's basketball thing, but
Mm-hmm.
to think that like Heidelberg, and by the way, Trine, right under there, Trine's really good.
Oh, very
Trine's
good.
ranked as we
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Yeah.
And they're not in the
Right.
regional rankings. So would you agree, like your region itself, just Region 7, is insanely deep?
It is, and that's the OAC, and that's there's some other conferences in our region that are extremely competitive. The OAC is and again, you've been around in the OAC. There's no easy victories, and you can't say that about every conference in America, where teams are basically guaranteed 8 wins a year based off the bottom 4.
Right.
In our conference, I know we have a couple of teams kind of struggling, new coaches, but traditionally there's nothing given to us.
Right.
And I think that's what makes our conference, up there, the upper echelon of Division 3, is just because of competitiveness. And like you mentioned, I don't know how much the NCAA is going to take in the equation, the fact that, hey, this Heidelberg team's pretty darn good. They've established that. They demonstrated that last year. They had a key injury to their point guard, about a month ago that's kind of hampered them, but they're an excellent team, and I hope they're regionally ranked. That obviously helps our resume, and I think our resume kind of speaks for itself. The non-conference wins,
Yeah.
win at Wheaton and Mount. I like to think it's what we win a couple more here. There's no doubt we should be hosting. And I think, hey, if we continue to win, I'd like to think we can host all the way to the Final Four. I think we put ourselves in that position and in those conversations.
Yeah, I was looking at some stuff today. I like to try to figure out how they might build a bracket and where people stand. And certainly, you're in great shape to host that first weekend. There's a really great trio at the top of your region with
Yeah.
Mount Union and you guys, and all of a sudden, Case Western Reserve is right in the middle of that picture.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think you're in great shape. And then the second weekend, it just kind of comes down to who the teams are and the geography and who they have to match up.
Yeah.
Want to talk about your guys a little bit here, Pete. Is I'm really impressed with the talent level from top to bottom that you're trotting out there, and really in no particular order. Luke Ciccone, you mentioned he's your nephew. I think he is your sister's son,
Yes.
and he gives you that like pure point guard. He can score it and do a lot of things, but he is quick. He's an amazing ball handler. He makes big plays. It seems like in big moments, you could put it in his hands and trust what he's going to do with it. Talk a little bit about Luke Ciccone, if you would.
He's an All-American, Bob. There's no question about it. Extremely gifted. I tell you, probably his best attribute is his ability to see the floor. I know he's at about five plus assists a game. Let me tell you, those numbers are probably a little bit higher. I think he gets short on his stick a few times when we're playing games as far as how many assists he has. But you talk about defensively. I'm hard pressed to believe that there's a better point guard in America. Again, I know he's my nephew, and my sister may kill me if I don't plug him, but I haven't seen anything of his talent at our level in a very, very long time. And we've been extremely fortunate to have some very, very good point guards through the years at John Carroll. Again, his ability to score, his ability to get to rim, he's extremely unselfish. You look at his counterpart, I'm sure you're going to bring up Luke Frazier, okay? Team lean scorer. Again, I'd like to find a better 2 or 3 guard in the nation. 6'6", he's on top of the league in steals, deflections, block shots. Just an athlete that you don't see at our level very often. Both those guys, are All-American candidates. And then you kind of go down the board. This Chase Toppin, he's our starting 2 or 3 man. One of the more underrated players in the nation. I think just an explosive athlete. But our core is really this young man. We have Jerry Higgins. He comes off the bench. He's a transfer from Citadel. We recruited him in high school. I often tell people he could marry my 5-year-old daughter right now if he wanted to. He's a grad student. He's in our biology department. He's going to be an orthopedic surgeon. Local ties to Cleveland, obviously. He went to high school 15 minutes away from here. He's the heart and soul of our team. What he does defensively is very, very high level on the ball. And then our interior. I mean, I have a problem with which big guys to play. We have 4 very, very solid big guys, 6'7", 6'8", that all deserve more minutes. It's just hard to kind of find minutes for them. So again, we're blessed with a lot of talent, but you look at Luke Chacon, Luke Frazier. I'm plugging them right now. I'm going to plug them hard after a year. It's hard to find a better backcourt than those 2 individuals.
Chacon averages 15 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Frazier is 18 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Higgins, you mentioned 7 and 2. You go right down the list. Chase Toppin, he's a guy that was with you last year. Mm-hmm. So probably a lot of people like to say that your team is all transfers, but he was a guy that returned and plays a huge role for you this year. He's averaging 10, 4 and 2. You're really balanced. You play a lot of guys, so the statistics are all really spread out. I want to ask you about Frazier because, boy, 6'6" sophomore, and it's hard to think of how incredible he's going to be. He's already, like you said, knocking on the door of being an All-American, but he is long and lanky and athletic, and he runs the floor. He made some plays at the end of that Mount Union game. Boy, he's a special talent. To just talk a little bit more about his skill set, and at this level, he just can do some things that I'm not sure you see all packaged together in one guy that often.
Well, a little bit of his backstory. His father was actually my JV football coach, 1996. So we're going back almost 30 years ago. I know his father very well, and his father was a very successful high school basketball coach. So he's a coach's kid, so he understands the game. He just has an ability to pick any spot on the floor and take a good shot. Very seldomly do I say that was a bad shot because he's able to get a step on a guy and pull up just because of his size and length. But I also think defensively, his ability with his length to get deflections, to block shots. He had some pretty remarkable chase down block shots in our game against Marietta. Again, things that you don't see at our level. He came to us from OU, and he actually started at the University of Dayton. He was recruited there the year Dayton was number 1 in the nation.
Right.
And then COVID obviously set him down. So he went down to Dayton, and just a bad experience. And we were going through COVID. He had 2 cases of COVID. His appendix blew. So his freshman year was kind of abysmal. And then he went to OU and, just didn't really enjoy it yet. And I think a lot of these guys, you see a lot of an influx in transfers across the board. Everybody in this world's chasing happiness, right? I'm sure, and I've thought about it over the last couple of years, what am I doing? Maybe I should change careers. Maybe I can find happiness somewhere else. A lot of these guys that came here, came here for our institution, our academics. We're an exceptional business school. A lot of these guys are business backgrounds, and they want to make a hell of a lot more money than I do down the road. So, and they want to be close to home. And again, it was kind of the perfect storm of guys coming home and relationships that we've established with these young men, which has been remarkable. These guys are all incredible young men. They're great. They're great ambassadors of our institution. A couple of knuckleheads, my nephew and Frazier, little knuckleheads, but they have bigger hearts than anyone I've ever coached. And just to see them bond together has really been special. And I think that's something I'm going to take away beyond our success this year is really, the relationships that have been able to establish really deeply this year, and that's because of our staff and, their commitment to our university.
That Mount Union game at your place. I just want to ask about the atmosphere in that game, because just watching the stream, it was packed. There was no empty seat anywhere, and your crowd and your students were into it from the tip, and especially down the stretch, it was crazy. They stormed the court. It's got to be pretty cool for you, Pete. Having such a long tie to this university, and obviously with your father's history there, and just
Mm-hmm.
like to see the building like that in that atmosphere. That was a must have been a pretty cool night for you guys.
It was. It was special. It brought back memories. I was fortunate enough to play for my father with my younger brother. The year we went down to the Final Four in 2004, ended up losing to Stevens Point. You remember the Stevens Point's teams? Those guys.
Jason Kelso, Nick Bennett,
Oh yeah, those guys. They
John
beat.
Kroll.
Yeah, they were. We pressured a lot back then, and they were just so long. They were able to throw over top, and uh, but you know what? We've had success. I think our first year we hosted the OAC championship game. It was that type of atmosphere. And then we hosted some NCAA games that year, but it brought back some times back when I was playing, and you play some rivalry games that are meaningful. Our crowd shows up, and we have tremendous support from other coaches that basically tell their student athletes they get to the game, and it's kind of remarkable to see. Again, I got so much respect for Coach Fuline at Mount. I know it's a rivalry, but he's one of my best friends when it comes to the OAC coaches. So to compete and kind of these last couple of years have been really difficult, for our program. COVID has affected everybody, but our first year I don't even know why we played 8 games. It was kind of pointless. And last year we followed every protocol. I don't think most schools in America follow the protocols like we did, but that's hearsay. But just to see us evolved out of COVID and bring back the tradition has been special. And to play an environment like that, I think that just makes it a little bit more sweeter.
So in terms of how you play in your style, I was looking at your season box score. Usually for any team you look at, some stats will stand out. With you guys, it's just kind of one of those where it's just across the board things are really impressive. You score 82 points a game, which is the obvious one that jumps out. Your opponents average 11 assists to 17 turnovers, which is a really good indication of how difficult you're making it. Just like watching you, if someone asked me to talk about the blue streaks and how you play, I would just say you guys run the floor really well, and you move really well, and you're quick and athletic. I mean, how would you describe the style that you're playing, Pete?
I think it starts on defensive end. Our exterior, meaning the guards, their ability to put pressure on the ball has been our bread and butter. We're pressuring, but we're not pressuring as extensively as we used to. Meaning we're not doing 5 in, 5 out. So
Right.
we're just extending ball pressure. And then you look at our interior, you look at our length and size, our guys' ability to defend in the post, alter shots. I know teams are averaging quite a bit of turnovers on us. It's really, it's not much that I'm doing, right? It's really their effort, but it's team defense too. That's something we constantly work on. It's making the extra defensive play. When things break down, maybe on ball screening defense, just our rotations. And that comes with guys playing together a little bit more. And they've been doing a much better job of buying into our philosophy on defensive end. And then the offensive end, I got to be honest, my brother runs it. I don't even know half the plays. I just mumble to him, throw the ball inside, or give the ball to him, and he usually yells at me, and I yell back during the course of the game. But that's a testament to him. He's on our guys. I let him do what he wants. He puts these guys in positions, right, space. I think the game of basketball has evolved, obviously, with space in the floor. So he does an excellent job of putting these guys in space to create on their own. Right, like I mentioned earlier, we didn't know what we had. We knew there was talent, but how do you get all these pieces to gel together? And him and the rest of the staff, they've been instrumental in that success.
Yeah, it's been impressive to watch, and again, with all the pieces you're putting together for how quickly it seemed to come together. I'm sure to you it doesn't feel like it was quick, but boy, watching you early on, you looked awfully good, and you keep getting better. We mentioned the regional rankings. earlier, you've got regional ranking 2 coming out tomorrow.
Mm.
I'm just curious how much you follow that stuff. Like how interested in you are you 1 or are you 2 or is it you or Mount or like Case? Do you follow that stuff closely?
Well, my brothers do. I mean, I try to stay away from it a little bit, and just focus on the next game. So obviously, the tightness of my family, I certainly hear all about it. You can make a case for any three of those teams, right? But I just think you got to look at strength of schedule. You got to look at non-conference strength of schedule. I think the Wheaton victory was enormous for us.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Bob, there's still 2 more weeks left of basketball.
Yep.
So I think it's all going to play. I think all three schools could make an argument, where they should be regionally ranked. I think it's important for us, that we all want to host, right? And I just hope the NCAA committee, looks at that, and just because our three institutions are, within an hour from each other, that we're not penalized because of that, because all three institutions obviously deserve, the rankings, but I think we put ourselves in a very good position. I think over the last 14 games we've won, and our strength of schedule. And then you throw in Heidelberg. Yeah, I think that's where it gets dicey. The fact that they're not regionally ranked, and you put them in another region that they possibly are.
Yeah.
Those could be 2 additional regionally ranked victories for us. But right now, from my perspective, I'm nervous about BW and how to defend all their ball screen action.
And let's talk about that as we start to wrap up. And I appreciate all your time during the stretch run of a season, especially where you guys are sitting and how much is on the line. So you've got Baldwin Wallace Wednesday of this week on the road. And then your last game is also on the road, and that's at Wilmington on, I guess that's Saturday, right? Saturday must be the 18th. Tough to finish with 2 on the road before you go into the conference tournament. What should we look for with that game at Baldwin Wallace here on Wednesday?
Well, it's a rivalry game, because we're 30 minutes apart from each other institutionally. Their coaching staff, again, I'm very good friends with them, think the world of them. They do a fantastic job. They're obviously a tough team to beat at their place, but they just do such a fabulous job of spacing the floor. They have 3 very dynamic guards. It's going to be a high intensity type game. I think the team that defends and ultimately the team that makes more shots. I know it's kind of cheesy, but cheap answer, but usually the teams that make more shots are teams that win. I know when they played us at our place earlier, I think they had 9 or 10 threes in the first half. That taught me something, that we're able to take some teams' biggest and best punch and still survive, like we did against Northern. Probably the best game they played, and they certainly shot the ball very well, and we're over to overcome some of that. But I told our guys today, we got to come out with a little bit more fire, because the basketball gods aren't going to always treat us well. We're going to have to create some things and start off with a little bit more tempo. So hopefully we're able to get off to a fast start on both ends of the floor. And again, it's they're playing for something, just like we are. Win right there, I think, locks up the number 1 seed in our tournament for us. It locks up at least a share of the OAC championship. And BW, they're playing to get in the OAC tournament.
Sure.
So there's a lot on line, obviously. So it's going to be a very intense, very competitive ball game.
Before we wrap up, I got to ask about your father. So Mike Moran, 25 years at the helm. He retired in 2017. He won 14 OAC titles. He was in the tournament 12 times. Is it correct? He's the head golf coach. Is that correct? He's been that golf coach forever and ever, right? He's still doing that, right?
You know what? Yeah, he's a golf coach. Yes, he's not the best golfer. Never was, but yeah, he's still, he's just in the office today. He's as the season has progressed, he gets a little bit more nervous. So he gets very intense when it comes to the games. But Bobby, a week after I got the job 6 years ago, they threw his name on the court, which added a lot of pressure for me. But I tell you, my fondest memories of John Carroll is obviously, with my father and the success that he's had. And, I often tell people this story, growing up, I knew Bobby Knight and Coach K. They weren't calling me. I knew that because I was able to see firsthand what it took to play Division III basketball at a high
Right.
level. My idols growing up were guys that my dad coached. And these are guys that not only excelled on the court, but they excelled beyond the game of basketball. What they're doing now, they're great fathers. They're very successful lawyers, doctors, businessmen. So I learned at a very early age who my idols were, right? I didn't have posters of, NBA players. I can recall, playing video games, and I would change NBA players. I would change my roster to all John Carroll players. So the institution has a special place in my heart. A lot of it's because my father. It's tough to live up to him sometimes, but as I progress in my career, we've been able to create it, and having my brothers around and some of my best friends that they're on the coaching staff has been instrumental. And it's like anything in this world. If you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work, right? I do it's a passion, and to get back to a university that blessed me not only with a great degree that I earned, but I was able to meet my wife, and I got three good children. Today they're behaving. So I'm very fortunate. I think our university is a special place, and my father's success and his legacy will forever live in the John Carroll University, Jim.
Very, very well said. And I talked to Steve Jurakovic here on the show last year, and he grew up in a similar family where his father was the longtime head coach at North Park and then Carthage, and just growing up in that environment, you look at the world differently as a kid playing basketball. You respect Division III. That's how you grew. You didn't grow up thinking about Ohio State. You grew up thinking about John Carroll, and I just think there's a big difference as you progress when that's kind of in your DNA. Pete, I really appreciate all the time. 21-2, 15-1. I think when the regional rankings come out tomorrow, the first time they actually rank them, I think you're going to be number 1 in Region 7, which is hard to do. That region's a beast. I wish you all the best as we get into conference tournament, NCAA. You're going to have some John Carroll fans tuning into the QCast. You also some D3 fans. I want you to close us out here. What do you want to leave everyone with on the QCast here today, Pete?
Well, two things. I want to plug Luke Chacon and Luke Frazier. They're all Americans. I mean, they're special talents. I think they're deserving of those honors when they come out. But I also want to acknowledge you, Bob, and I know off air I mentioned it to you, but we appreciate what you do, and know that you're doing it for all the right reasons. Division III basketball is like I mentioned to you, it's the purest form of basketball there is at any level. I got a young son that's playing third grade travel, and it's frustrating to see how some of these parents act, and I have numerous friends that coach at the high school level and what they have to deal with, and then you look at the higher levels with all this NIL and scholarship, and then you look at the NBA and those egos. The Division III, you're there because you love it, right? And that's what I think is so special. I know what you do, and a lot of other individuals that love Division III basketball just know that you guys are doing it for a good cause, and they're good people that you're supporting.
Well, much appreciated. We have a group that does this because we love it. No one's making any cash on it. We just do it as a hobby and a passion, and we love supporting D3. Hope to see you in a gym before this season ends. I look to be a NCAA free agent this year with my IW Titans not faring too well. So maybe I will see you somewhere in a first round or second round or a second weekend gym, Pete. I would love to watch your team in person. And again, best of luck to you. And thank you so much for taking the time during the busy part of the season to do this, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anytime. I really appreciate you.